Remakes are a tricky being to discuss. There's so many types that could be falling under this large umbrella, and lines get blurred with ports and other remasters. Now, usually some of these are just audio or visual upgrades and ease of access on the current gen consoles, of course. That is what I would consider to be the remaster level. The next tier I would say would be a remake. Usually assets were remade from the ground up, but the core is still there. The game will more or less be identical. Given to the highest tier of a remake is what I would call a reimagining. Now more of an unofficial term, but take the concept of a remake, now change the base game. The story may be similar, of course, but the progression may change, new developments, characters, and all that stuff. The debate for these terms is endless. It depends on each person's definition, if I'm being honest. Of course, I can only beat around the bush so much. I, of course, am referring to Metroid Zero Mission as a reimagining. This is one of the first times I've ever had experience with something to this effect in gaming. If I'm being blunt, this is one heavy standard to set, defining how to do a remake of a title and dwarfing the original by a landslide. When I first played this game, it was hard for me to wrap around my head that this was a beefed up remake. I mean, it was called Metroid Zero Mission, so clearly not the same. The original game was just called Metroid. The Game Boy Advance was a time apparently for remakes. A Link to the Past had a remake with the 4-sword bundle on it. Countless Mario All-Star compilations. Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland also pulled a Zero Mission too, redoing the original Kirby's Adventure. It was great. At the time, I didn't have the ability to play the original games unless on some sketchy ROM or flash site usually, and portable games were always a huge plus for me. A whole new generation could get exposed to some certified hood classics, much like this. Of course, with all this being said, Zero Mission is more than a competent remake and helped establish its own identity, which is really cool to see, with added lore, extra bosses, and the introduction to the series Zero Suit, a very iconic look for the bounty hunter. I couldn't imagine why.
And here we stand today with Metroid Zero Mission. This was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2004. So, let us zero in and not get distracted. Let's dive in.
Looking at the Metroid series as a whole may help put this title into a bit more of a perspective. By 2004, the series had spread some very diverse titles out in the rather small by comparison Nintendo franchise. 2 years prior, the series hit a generational high, releasing both Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion. Prime is the first 3D game for Samus, and a goddamn masterpiece in that own regard. Many still consider it best in the series as a whole, and really leveled up the series to being a big dog in Nintendo. The flip side is Fusion, a 2D masterpiece. Many consider this the pinnacle of 2D Metroid, as well as perfectly cementing the series into a more 2D action survival horror type game. Both games changed the series for the better. Fusion has tight controls, layers of atmosphere to make an onion jealous, and Prime knocked out exploration, world design, general visuals, as well as just an amazing transition into the extra dimension. Now this is a lot of praise for not our main topic, but where as a series do you go from here? It's clear more than ever that more eyes had been on Samus. For an anecdote, going to me, I played Melee and Samus was one of my go-to fighters. Getting a copy of Metroid Prime was my first true dip into the series, and I'm sure I'm not the only one getting introduced by way of Smash. I mean hell, look at what this did to Fire Emblem, especially later down the line. While the Prime series continued its work with the goated Retro Studios, Yoshio Sakamoto took lead once again for a new project set for handheld. During the process, a remake of Super Metroid was suggested, but it actually went backwards to the original. Sakamoto wanted a game that went back to the basics in a sense, helping ease new players into the franchise. His own words stated that the goal was to hook a player who's never played a Metroid title prior to Fusion. So the team got to work, utilizing the base engine from Fusion and trying to make a remake work with the new ideas. One of the biggest changes was story, of course. Fusion specifically was a lot more narrative driven, and since the original Metroid falls both first in release order and timeline order, more story was given to expand on Samus's origin. This was sprinkled in as well as our new epilogue for the Zero Mission, adding a whole new area for the planet to explore. The reviews were generally favorable when they came out. The biggest criticisms fell into the game's length, being too short. The legacy over time seemed to ease up though, many calling it one of the best GBA games and simply one of the best remakes ever released. I myself already alluded to this fact, and the real question remains, why? Well, why indeed? The story, while expanded, remained structured all the same as the original. A battle for the creatures known as Metroids. These titular beings are eerily powerful leeches, draining the energy out of any living thing in mere seconds. Being an extremely dangerous parasitic race, many attempts to quell them has been conducted. This is done to make sure the wrong people do not cross the Metroids. A group known simply as Space Pirates got a hold of some sample Metroids from the Galactic Federation. The reasoning is clear. They mean to mass replicate this being to make their own biological weapons for a quick and easy universal domination. This currently leads to planet Zebes, currently the main stronghold for the pirates. Samus, as the Federation's greatest bounty hunter, is tasked to eliminate the enemy from within, a standard frontal assault proving a bit ineffective at this time. The goal for Samus Aran is quite simple: infiltrate Zebes and destroy Mother Brain, the nexus of the Space Pirates. Mother Brain controls all by way of a giant sentient cyborg brain sending orders to the rest of the pirates. So away we go down to the depths of Zebes. Luckily, they were nice enough to give us a power suit to be equipped with, of course, to take out an intergalactic terroristic organization. So in addition to finding our way to the main brain, we're gonna have to power up, and power up we really will do. Yes, the gameplay is a Metroidvania, the name kinda gives it away. The main loop is find an item, use said item to traverse deeper into the planet. Luckily, Zebes was home for the ancient race of Chozo, a race of bird-like humanoids who have deep history with Samus. But for the time being, all you really need to know is that they created her power suit. Interacting with effigies of Chozo, they send you in a general direction of another Chozo area to gain more upgrades for the suit. The classics are here with many new ones, usually ripped from the games in between NES and Zero. Now this does offer backtracking. It's a wide critique of the genre, and while I really don't mind it, it differs from game to game and, of course, person to person. Going back to the reviews, yeah, the game is extremely short. The backtracking is really not that much of an issue, if I'm being honest. And for the Metroid series in particular, this has always been supplemented well with the many power-ups that come off as optional. Sprinkled around the planet are energy tanks and missiles. Missiles do more damage and may be needed to penetrate some enemy defenses. Energy tanks offer a whole extra bar of health for Samus, each one adding another 100 hit points to our hunter. These are not needed to really gather, but add to the game's item completion, if one wants to seek that out, of course. Many are shown to be right in front of you, but initially lack the means to reach that item. You then can swing back later and go, oh yeah, that's right, I have this ability now, I can go get that missile pack. Now you can breeze back and forth to the main goal, but exploration is key for the early players. They range in difficulty too. Some are simply insane to reach, utilizing fast reactions, techs, and simple patience. Who designed some of this? The movement itself is very fluid. It is what the series created before it, but simply refined. Common in the series, it can also reward a skilled player with sequence breaking. Mainly for speedrunning and challenges, a true gamer may be able to get to that place not intended for game's progression, hence sequence breaking the game. That is more or less what I can tell you, because I'm not one of those true official gamers that I just previously mentioned. Skills like bomb jumping and shine sparking are two common abilities that once mastered make you a god and have stuck throughout the series. Now that is not to say that every game is perfect in this series. No, that would be typically false if I said that. There are some tedious segments in many games. The MacGuffin hunt seen in the Prime trilogy to pad the endgame, the whole of Meridian Super Metroid, 90% of Prime hunters. When was the last time you played the NES Metroid? Because good lord, that did not age great. Bouncing off my last sentence, there is so much improvements to the classic. First up, maps. Let me tell you, being spoiled with any Metroid game from Super on is tough because 1 and 2 had no maps for their original games. Don't even get me started on Metroid 2, because that was on the Game Boy, and it's really hard to differentiate Gray Zone 1 from the other 50 fucking Gray Zones. Having the map is super helpful. It's never an end-all be-all, as some paths you will still need to take note of not being able to progress normally at all. Some routes have to be taken more obtusely as well. It's still an amazing addition as the tunnels below Zebes can get tricky for damn sure. The visuals are a nice step up, of course, giving better biodiversity to the general planet as well. Of course, this better biodiversity also helps with area recognition as well. There's also better diversity in enemies, specifically the bosses. Metroid had 3, and they look interesting. The big trio that stuck through is Kraid, Ridley, and Mother Brain. Kraid specifically probably has the title for the series' best glow-up, since he finally ate his vegetables and grew large. He has such more of an intimidating factor, even if he's still pretty easy. Ridley as well, being the arch nemesis of Samus, and a core talking point in her therapy sessions, Ridley gets his size up and looks much more fierce, that of the parent killer he is. Of course, we get chock full of new bosses sprinkled throughout. Mainly seen as aggressive wildlife in the planet, nothing is crazy unique. The highlighted bosses still remain the heads of the space pirates, but they're still welcome indeed. The first boss you actually get many encounters with, teaching good and cost-effective missile to retina placement. Nothing really negative to say, they help add to the game's rather lacking boss roster and also feel at home if you ask me, they're all really fun. The defeat of Kraid and Ridley unlock access to the space pirate stronghold of Turian. It has a much more mechanical and sterilized look, paired with the introduction of our Metroids finally. It's a sight to take in. Ironically enough, damn near every space pirate in Turian has been a victim of the Metroids. The replication clearly seeming to be a success, but at a grisly cost. It's eerie for sure. The way the Metroids enter in from the background and the sheer panic if one even latches onto you, and watch how quickly your life drains. This is where you reuse the guy clip from Spy Kids 3 here, please, Editor Josh. Metroids have a staple of being weak to cold. Using the main beam to freeze them and then pump full of missiles is proving to be the really only effective way to take out these life forms. At the end, of course, is the brain. Mother Brain has a large security system built in to fight back, as a giant brain does not really get around and move a whole lot. It does have a beam it shoots out from the eye, but really should not be too much of a struggle to take out, especially if you have boatloads of super and regular missiles. Well, of course the brain dies, and it's a sore loser. The son of a bitch has an auto self-destruct switch upon death. It's a very Metroid staple to end with an escape sequence. This bomb is big enough to blow a hole in the whole of the area we traversed. So a beeline for Samus' ship is priority number 1. Getting there means escape as we watch the planet light up in a giant explosion. Luckily Zebes is still intact, or else the next part would truly suck. This, as many are aware, is the end for the NES version of Metroid. The game would end mission complete and Samus takes off her clothes, but the Zero mission in Metroid Zero Mission begins immediately. Ambushing Samus in Zebes' orbit is a giant space pirate mothership. This was foreshadowed prior with an unknown entity observing our bounty hunter idly. The ship shoots down Samus and she makes an emergency crash landing onto an unexplored part of Zebes. Well, the ship and her suit are toast, leaving Samus in the iconic Zero suit. As stated, this was our introduction to the blue jumpsuit that is a secondary look to the Samus. And really for the plot's understanding, it's not some super cool suit. It's quite literally an undershirt or an undersuit, I guess. While it does help Samus become much more acrobatic and agile, getting her into higher Smash Bros. Competitive tiers, it leaves our girl defenseless. Who knew that a hulking high-tech suit made by an ancient hyper-intelligent race helped block incoming damage from literally everything? No beams, no missiles, no cool abilities, and no energy tanks. There's a reason why she doesn't don this suit for her adventures and usually is relegated for cutscenes. The new area crash landing here is known as Chozodia, a site for some ancient Chozo ruins, now soiled by the landing of the mothership. Most likely it's in an attempt to find and ensure the death of Samus. The pirates are strong. Samus has no armor and only a stun pistol as a means of defense. With no ship, we have to enter the base and find a means of escape. This is clearly not going to be a piece of cake. Get it? Cause it's an ass reference. This new stretch of game is quite unique. The first section is a stealth Metal Gear-like section where you sneak around avoiding the space pirate's gaze. Now, if you played Fusion, you got some experience avoiding an unkillable machine, so you are in luck to find out that these guys are significantly less relentless and mentally scarring to the psyche. There's a charge meter on the stun pistol that, if full, gives a temporary freeze to a single pirate. Helpful to evade chase if and when caught. I like the section overall. It's not super long and provides a unique traversal through an area. This gives us a preview of what the level will be like when we return to full power. Spoilers, I guess. On the opposite end of the ruins lies a temple for the Chozo. Samus is tested here by the spirits of Chozo Old. We get an odd fight and some flashbacks showing the lore of Samus being raised here by the Chozo after the murder of her parents. It's cool to see this get expanded more as the series progresses, but moving that aside, we pass this trial and regain our suit and then some. Along with our old suit being restored, the suit comes with some fancy new doohickeys thanks to the gathering of old Chozo relics throughout the main adventure. They're rather new and mysterious, they couldn't be identified and were simply just not compatible with the current suit. Unlocked now are the Plasma Beam, Screw Attack, and Gravity Suit. It's now time to switch up roles on the pirates for the last section. Objective 1 and only 1 is GTFO, but you can explore the area and pick up some items, including the overpowered power bombs. We do find a hangar where there are some small vessels, but it's currently inaccessible. Being blocked out, we continue into the ship eventually, facing off with this brigade's commander, Mecha Ridley. I'm not really too keen on his lore, but I guess Ridley was such a good commander they wanted more of him, so this crew got Ridley at home. Killing this robot takes out our enemy's final commander here on the planet. Well, wouldn't you guess it, Mother Brain clearly had such a big inspiration as the mechanical corpse sets off a self-destruct timer that will wipe out the ship and ruins. We get a second escape sequence, although we still have our goal, the ship hangar. We make it out to the hangar, and of course the doors are now open due to the defeat of Mecha Riddles. We hop in and make our second and final escape, hopefully. Talk about a pain in the ass. Overall, this epilogue is not super long, and I think it's rather unique and a cool ending to differentiate from being just a remake. It adds so much while being still a very enjoyable segment of the game. I think this helps it hit perfect length for me too. With this comes our endings, a Metroid tradition, usually a combination of item collection and time taken to beat. This gives us an image of Samus, usually in varying levels of suit or lack thereof. With the best ending being 100% items in under 2 hours, that's insane. I got a neutral ending of between 2 to 4 hours with a non-100% collection rate. As I said, some items are absolutely ridiculous to get. It will probably take simple practice for sure here. They're all cool though, the shots are nice, more looks to the Zero suit, and even the classic suit from OG Metroid is here. So go at them depending on how thirsty you folks are, I won't judge. Two other completions we get is the access to hard mode and playing the original Metroid from NES. Hard mode is pretty obvious, it's those looking for a challenge. The NES Metroid is a game of all time. I think I'd rather just do a second playthrough of Zero Mission. At the beginning of this video, I said that Zero Mission Remains is a perfect example of how a remake is done justice. In this sense, it's more of a reimagining, of course, with a lot new elements, gameplay, levels, bosses, and lore expanded on it. It looks great on the GBA, plays swimmingly, and really shows how movement has improved over time. It really is 2D Metroid bliss. It is a must-play for those 2D platformer fans. And while Fusion offers more unique story and setting, being the preferred GBA entry to fans, I think Zero Mission Remains is an extremely respectable adventure that has stood its ground around a time where we seem to be getting banger after banger for the series. It's a lot safer of a pick too, if you maybe been put off by some of the other titles. It's really a gold standard in how to do a remake justice, a very sad reflection considering the laziness we see remakes in the modern generation go. You can really feel the passion in creating something unique like this, as opposed to, buy this game again please, I just want your money. I wonder if we'll ever see a return to the Zero suit in a gameplay sense. It's a cool idea, and while easily to suss out why it didn't return due to extremely limited capabilities, it feels like it can add to the Metroid formula as a whole. It currently seems like the series is in good hands. With the love for both 2D and 3D series in a good state, we got a lot to look forward to. I'm really hoping this won't age poor for Metroid Prime 4. Last thing I ask is Nintendo, please, just do not let this series flop like you did with so many others. And also, can we add something like with cosmic horror elements? I feel like that'd be cool. I want to get scared, but like a good way scared, not the take away everything I love kind of scared. You feel? Can I have Golden Sun back, please?